Last Monday, I got a jury duty summons in the mail. Standard government envelope. My name, my address, my county. I opened it at the kitchen counter the way everyone does, already annoyed, already calculating how to postpone it. But it wasn't a summons to serve on a jury. My name wasn't in the juror box. It was in the defendant box. I am being tried for a murder I have never heard of. The victim's name is someone I have never met. The date of the crime? I was home, alone, no alibi. The trial date is in 19 days. I want to be very precise about what I'm telling you because the details matter. I am not confused. I am not misreading the document. I have read it 40 times across the past 6 days, and every single time it says the same thing. I've had 2 other people read it independently without telling them what they were looking at, and both of them went very quiet, very fast. My name is Aaron Whitfield. I am 33 years old. I am a high school history teacher in Sacramento, California. I have never been arrested. I have never been charged with anything. My most significant interaction with law enforcement before 6 days ago was a speeding ticket in 2019 that I paid online the same day. Last Monday, I came home from school to find a manila envelope in my mailbox. Official looking. Sacramento County return address. I assumed it was jury duty. I'd been called twice before, both times postponed. I took it inside, made coffee, opened it at the counter. The header read, Superior Court of California, County of Sacramento, Criminal Division. My name was printed clearly in the center of the page under the heading, The People of the State of California v. Aaron James Whitfield. I am Aaron James Whitfield. I read it again. 3 times standing at my kitchen counter with my coffee going cold beside me. The charge listed was second-degree murder. The alleged victim, a man named Curtis Ray Dobbins, 41 of Sacramento. The alleged date of the crime, October 14th of last year, a Tuesday. I was home that Tuesday. I remember it specifically because I'd been grading midterms and ordered pizza and watched a documentary about the Korean War. I didn't leave my apartment. The trial date was listed as 19 days from the day I received the notice. I called my sister first because she's a paralegal, and I needed someone who would understand what they were looking at. She went quiet for a long time after I read it to her. Aaron, that's not how trial notifications work, she said. Defendants don't get notified by mail 19 days before trial. There would have been an arrest, arraignment, preliminary hearings, months of process before a trial date. You can't just receive a trial notice out of nowhere. I know, I said, but I'm holding it. Is there a case number? I read it to her. She looked it up in the Sacramento County Court record system while I stayed on the phone. The silence that followed lasted long enough that I started to think she'd dropped the call. Aaron, she said finally. Her voice was different, careful in a way that scared me more than the document had. There's a case filed under this number, second-degree murder, People v. Aaron James Whitfield. How is that possible? I don't know. It shows an arraignment date from 4 months ago, a preliminary hearing 2 months ago, a trial date set for 19 days from now. There's a public defender listed as counsel of record. I don't have a public defender. I've never spoken to a public defender. I know, she said. But according to Sacramento County Superior Court records, you have been navigating a murder trial for 4 months. I sat down on my kitchen floor. Not dramatically. My legs just stopped working properly, and the floor was there. Someone had been going to court as me for 4 months, showing up to hearings, speaking to a public defender, entering pleas, being processed through the criminal justice system under my name, my identity, my future. And I had known nothing about it. The next morning I drove to the Sacramento County Courthouse before school, walked up to the clerk's window, gave my name, and asked about the case. The clerk looked it up. looked at me, looked back at her screen. "Are you represented by counsel?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "Someone apparently is, using my name." She called her supervisor over. The supervisor looked at the screen, looked at me, asked for my ID. I handed over my driver's license. She studied it for a moment. "Mr. Whitfield," she said slowly, "the defendant in this case has appeared at 2 prior hearings. We have him on record." "I have never been to this courthouse before today," I said. She looked at me with an expression I didn't fully understand at the time, something between professional concern and something more personal, like she was recalibrating something in real time. "The defendant at the preliminary hearing," she said. "He provided identification." "What identification?" She looked back at her screen. "A California driver's license," she said, "issued to Aaron James Whitfield. Your address, your date of birth. Someone had my ID, or a copy of it good enough to pass a courthouse clerk. Had been using it for 4 months to impersonate me in an active murder trial. Had sat in a courtroom with a public defender and answered to my name and entered a plea under my name. And had done it well enough that no one had questioned it until I walked in and stood in front of them in person." I asked the supervisor what the plea had been. She looked at her screen. "Not guilty," she said. I almost laughed. Almost. "Can I see the courtroom footage from the hearings?" I asked. Another look between the supervisor and the clerk. "Mr. Whitfield," the supervisor said carefully, "I think you need to speak with law enforcement before we go any further. There are some irregularities in this case that go beyond what we can address at the clerk's window." "What irregularities?" I asked. She folded her hands on the counter. "The defendant at the preliminary hearing," she said. "He provided your identification. He gave your address. He answered to your name." She paused. "But the public defender assigned to the case filed a motion last week requesting a competency evaluation." "Why?" I asked. She chose her words the way people do when they're about to say something that has no good framing. "Because in their last meeting," she said, "the defendant told the public defender that Aaron Whitfield didn't exist." "Aaron Whitfield doesn't exist." I stood at that clerk's window for probably 15 seconds without moving. The supervisor had the patient, careful expression of someone who had delivered confusing information before and knew that people needed a moment. I needed more than a moment. I thanked her. I walked out of the courthouse. I sat in my car in the parking structure for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel. Then I called the Sacramento Police Department and told them everything. The officer who took my initial report was professional and thorough. He asked good questions. He didn't look at me like I was unstable, which I appreciated because I was starting to feel unstable. He took copies of the court notice, my ID, and my sister's notes from the court records search. He assigned a case number and told me a detective would follow up within 48 hours. Detective Amara Osei called me the next morning. She had clearly done her homework before calling. She already knew about the case file, the hearings, the public defender's competency motion. She asked me to come in that afternoon. I sat across from her in an interview room, not an interrogation room. She was careful to clarify that, though the distinction felt thin. And she walked me through what they'd found. The man who had been appearing in court as me was currently in custody. He'd been arrested 3 days before I received the trial notice, not for the original murder charge, but for a separate incident that had flagged his fingerprints in the system. The fingerprints didn't match any existing record, which meant he had no prior criminal history, which meant he had, until that arrest, existed entirely under my identity. "How long?" I asked. "Based on what we've found so far," Detective Osei said, "at least 14 months. 14 months. For over a year, somewhere in Sacramento, a man had been living as Aaron James Whitfield. Not hiding as me, not using my name occasionally for convenience, living as me, fully, consistently, completely. Does he have his own identity? I asked. His real name? That's the complicated part, she said. His fingerprints returned no match in any database, domestic or international. We have no birth record, no school records, no prior address history, no family members who've come forward. As far as every system we've checked is concerned. She paused. He doesn't exist outside of being you. The room felt smaller than it had a minute before. What does he look like? I asked. She turned her laptop around. A booking photo, standard. Flat lighting, gray background, height markers on the wall behind him. He looked like me the way a worn photocopy looks like an original. Same general structure, similar height, similar build, similar coloring. But something slightly off in the proportions. Nose a fraction too wide, eyes set slightly further apart, like someone had described me in detail to an artist who had never seen me and asked them to reconstruct my face from the description alone. Close, but wrong in a way that made my skin feel too tight. Did he say anything? I asked. When he was arrested, did he say anything about me? Detective Osei looked at her notes. He was cooperative during booking. Gave your name, your address, your date of birth, recited your social security number correctly, listed your employer, your sister's name, your mother's maiden name. Things that aren't on a driver's license. Things that require sustained, intimate research to know. When the arresting officer told him they'd be running his fingerprints, she continued, he became agitated for the first time. He said, she looked at her notes again, reading directly. He said, the prints won't match because they took those from me too. They take everything and give it to the copy. I'm not the copy, I'm the original. Aaron Whitfield is the copy. The fluorescent light above us hummed. He believes he's the real me, I said. He believes it completely, she said. The public defender reported the same thing. In every interaction, he maintained the identity calmly and consistently, knowing your history, your family, details of your childhood, until directly confronted with evidence that didn't match. At that point, he reframed the evidence rather than the identity. What does that mean? It means when they showed him your driver's license photo, the real one, he said it was a fabrication. When they showed him your employment records, he said they'd been altered. He has a complete internal logic that positions you as the false version and himself as the authentic one. I thought about the past 14 months, the ordinary days, the school hallways, the lesson plans, the groceries, the evenings watching television, the completely unremarkable life I'd been living while somewhere across the city, another man had been living the same life. Attending court hearings in my name, building a history under my identity, constructing a version of my existence so detailed that it had fooled a courthouse, a public defender, and every official record it touched. What happens now? I asked. He'll be evaluated, she said, psychiatrically and legally. The murder charge, Curtis Ray Dobbins. We're reinvestigating from the beginning. We don't know yet whether he committed the crime he was charged for as you, or whether the original charges were themselves part of a larger pattern. A larger pattern, I repeated. She looked at me steadily. Aaron, in the past 7 years, we've found 4 other open cases in California involving defendants who match this general profile. Different names, different cities, all of them identities that, when we pull the thread, have the same quality. Someone else was living them. 4 other people, 4 other lives being worn by people who had no verifiable existence of their own. What are they? I asked. Where do they come from? Detective Osei closed her laptop. That, she said, is a question we are very actively trying to answer. That was 4 days ago. I went to school this morning, taught 3 classes, graded papers during lunch, drove home on the same route I always take. Everything looked exactly the same as it always does. But I keep thinking about something the public defender told Detective Osei during their last meeting with the man who'd been living as me. She'd asked him directly, "If you're the real Aaron Whitfield, what happened to the fake one?" He'd smiled for the first time in any of their interactions. "He's still out there," he said. "He just doesn't know what he is yet." I'm still trying to decide if he meant me. He smiled when she asked what happened to the fake one. Said he's still out there. Said he just doesn't know what he is yet. I don't know what I am yet either, but I know I'm still here. If this story got under your skin, subscribe. Turn on notifications, because Detective Osei called me this morning with something new. And my next video starts with what she found in those other 4 cases. Drop a comment. Do you think he's telling the truth? Do you think there's something larger happening here? I genuinely want to know what you think, because right now your theories are the only thing keeping me sane.